Okay, welcome to the 15th video in our series on getting this 1974 Mercury Capri ready for 24 Hours of Lemons. We are adapting a 2005 Ford Mustang V6 engine, front suspension and rear axle and transmission all to the Capri body. The Capri had a bad engine and extensive rust. We were not going to be able to do the restoration we originally planned, so here we are doing the 24 Hours of Lemons and running the hard brake lines here. One of the things that we ran into is that the Mustang back axle is, of course, wider than the Capri body. And the wheel wells weren't a problem because they were rusty anyway. We were going to cut those out. Here, Elizabeth, Keaton's wife, is helping us do some wiring on the tail lights and anti-brake lights. She's helped out several times, and we appreciate that. And we also finally received the radiator from Speedway Motors, and so I've got to build some brackets for that. Now, this radiator is kind of a standard off-the-shelf Ford replacement radiator for a Ford V8. It is actually smaller frontal area-wise than the Mustang radiator, which was damaged in the accident and wasn't usable, and bigger than the Capri radiator, which was rotted out and would cost more to rebuild than this radiator from Speedway Motors. So the radiator and the electric fan both did cost money that counted against the overall build. Here you can see Keaton working on wiring for the front lights. And we'll be using the Mustang switch to run the Capri lights. Anyway, the way we paid for the radiator and the fan was selling parts off the Mustang. You can offset the cost of your car with pieces that you can sell off the car. And since this is kind of a Frankenstein of the Mustang and the Capri, we were able to sell, really, in just selling the doors and the seats, and I think the rear trunk lid and spoiler, we more than covered the cost of the Mustang, the wrecked Mustang, and had money left over to pay for radiator and fan. Now, those that accounting, when you go in for the race, the day of the race, there's a BS judge, and they will assign you penalty laps for every $10 that you are over the $500 limit. Now you can show your documentation, what you sold for where, for how much, and see if they go for it. In our case, they did. They said, "Yep, that makes sense." And they didn't assign us any penalty laps, even though we had a new radiator and a new fan in it. Here, we're adapting the center tunnel with, I really want the shift lever out of it is what I want, and to cover the hole that we had to cut in the Capri center tunnel for the larger transmission to fit. And so by stealing this part off the Mustang, we're just going to graft it in and shorten up the linkage between the shift lever and the transmission. Now I have to taper this part so it will fit and kind of blend into the lower, the tunnel on the Capri is not as big as the tunnel on the Mustang, so we kind of have to kind of blend them in. This is not the most exact. If you wanted to do this for a car that would be any sort of show car, you would take a whole lot more time on this, and I think you could graft this in a nice way. We were able to do it in a very functional way, quickly, because we were running out of time. We had like a week to go at this point before the race, and we still can't shift the car. We still can't cool the engine. So here Keaton's welding up our shortened shift linkage, and I'm working on cleaning up the tunnel I'm going to have to clean up both the tunnel and the, oh yeah, this is another part of the shift linkage that Keaton's working on. But I'm going to have to clean up the tunnel and the Mustang, and the Capri floor so that we can weld them up. You can't weld with any paint on anything, so that you'll see me working on that here. First, though, I had to open up the Capri tunnel just a little bit more. The end of the transmission was a little tight as we fit everything in. We were like, there's a good chance that once we get the drive shaft hooked up to this, that things could rub. We were looking one last minute to see would it make any sense to use any of the old Capri floor, and we decided that no, it couldn't really be blended well. So I've got to cut a little bit more of the Capri tunnel. We'll see that here. Keaton has been working on wiring and also doing welding for us. Keaton had picked up TIG welding much quicker than I did or remembered it. I had TIG welded a little bit, but I do more MIG than TIG. Anyway, Keaton had got his welding up on a level that I probably couldn't get my MIG welding to catch up to his unless I took several days to practice. So we were just having Keaton do all the welding. Here, though, I'm marking where I've got to clean up the paint on the Capri floor, and I've cleaned up the paint on the. I think I've cleaned up the paint. We probably still have a little bit more to do on this Mustang tunnel section. Now I'm cutting notches in the Mustang tunnel section so that we can taper it down in vertically. It's a little wider down at the bottom than it needs to be to line up with the bottom section of the tunnel on the Capri. So we cut a notch every few inches, and then we could just push those in and tack weld, kind of bump and weld, so that everything blended in. Now I'm cleaning up the paint, stripping that off on the Capri floor so that we can graft this tunnel in. And Keaton is working on wiring. The other thing Keaton is starting on is the exhaust. We need to adapt the Mustang exhaust to fit the Capri, and that was a little bit of a challenge in spots. Not too bad though, because we didn't have to run the catalytic converters. We were able to remove those, and that was the saving grace. If you're running catalytic converters, probably would have to change the position of those. I don't think you'd be able to keep them in the stock spot they were on the Mustang exhaust. You'd have to relocate them down lower. There wasn't room. Here occasionally you'll see me push in on a section of the transmission tunnel so that he can do the tack weld. I'm just kind of tightening it up, drawing it in down low because it's spread out further than it needed to be, and we needed all the space we could get on the driver's side for the footwell to have enough room for the accelerator pedal. It ended up being tight anyway, but it was fine. I had an MGA at one point, and it had less room than this did for your accelerator pedal, so I think we adapted to it. It certainly has less room, though, than you're used to in a modern car as far as this pedal spacing between the brake and the accelerator. Here, Keaton, though, is getting all these cuts welded up now that we've used them to taper it in. One of the other rules with Lemons is that you can't have any holes in the firewall, and we assumed that would apply to the transmission tunnel as well, so we wanted to make sure everything was welded up good. There's also about 6 inches, well, maybe a little less, it's probably more like 4 inches at the very end, top part of the tunnel to firewall, and I was going to have to hand make that. We're going to have to hand bend some metal to fit that transition, and that would just remain on the to-do list until about the day before the race. But this got the transmission, or it got the transmission tunnel and the shift lever welded in so that we would be able to test drive this car once we got a radiator in it and exhaust and several other things. So here I'm working with that radiator from Speedway Motors. It is too big for the stock location on the Capri. Really what I should have done was move the front cross member on the Capri. We should have cut it out, moved it forward an inch, maybe 2, and welded it back in, and then the radiator would have slid in just fine. But as it was, we put it in at an angle ahead of the front cross member, took out some of the rusted metal down at the bottom, and it's got a bit of the chin. If we were to hit the thing, we rear end somebody, it would really get the radiator in a hurry. But it ended up being a good location for airflow, and we were able to fit everything. We're going to wrap up here shortly. Thanks for watching, and we'll have more for you soon. Hit like if you've enjoyed it. But I'm trying to keep these to 11 or 12 minutes and then just do the next section. So that's it for now. More soon. Thanks for watching.